Black like me. Black like me. Black like me.
You're listening to Black Like Me with Dr. Alex G., a podcast that invites you to experience the world through the perspective of one black man, one conversation, one story, or even one rant at a time. Here's Dr. G.
Hey, good people. Welcome back to another exciting episode of Black Like Me with Dr. Alex G. Hey, I am really enjoying Season 12. We're having these great conversations about the wonderful grand opening of the Center for Black Excellence and Culture, and not just about things that have led up to the grand opening, but just things about the center and its being open, and talking about that in general. The way my mind works is that when I see an organization or an association, I want to know the backstory. I want to know who was at the table, who shaped it, who pressed the envelope, who helped to take things to new boundaries, and how do we get this wonderful construct. And so what I decided to do is, as we're celebrating the opening of the Center for Black Excellence and Culture, to talk to people who worked with me behind the scenes, in front of the scenes, around the edges, to make this place as beautiful and fantastic as it is. And within the whole structure of looking at the people who are behind the scenes, I thought that it would be really important for me to talk with folks who have either been or have become allies, specifically white allies, in this project, because we often talk about what's going wrong in society and why we can't and shouldn't trust each other and how cultural differences keep us apart. And I thought I would really love to have a frank conversation or frank conversations with friends, associates, colleagues who were so key to bringing this wonderful vision to life. And today's guest is no different and actually no stranger to the Black Like Me studios. In fact, on certain days, he takes credit for even having told me that I should create a podcast, none of which is true, but you know, and sometimes in his memory, that's the way just things go. But my special guest today is Jim Bauer, who has served as my project manager on this major undertaking since the beginning. Now, Jim has an interesting set of gifts and an interesting business where he accelerates vision. And it doesn't matter whether it's a Center for Black Excellence and Culture, it could be a cure for dementia, it could be the startup of a new tech company. He understands visionaries, which can be good and bad. So some days he's the visionary whisperer, and then other days visionaries hate him because he's pushing us to look at all of our stuff that impedes the growth of the vision. And although many times we want to think that it's money and it's policy and it's personnel and all those things, and it's his job to hold up a mirror and remind us that maybe sometimes it's us as the visionaries. And so this has been such a powerful and meaningful and interesting and trying partnership over the past several years. And so welcome back to Black Like Me podcast studios. How are you doing today?
Great to be here, I think.
You think? Now I get to tell you everything I've been wanting to tell you, Jim, for the last 5 or 6 years. So, Jim, okay, just for folks who are newer to the podcast, you and I met, probably 20 years ago,
Yep.
because we were thinking of doing another project just on the church side, because my listeners know that I'm also a pastor. But we were going to demolish our church building and build like an L-shaped strip mall where the church would probably use some of the space, multi-purpose. It could be a gym during the week and then an auditorium during the weekend and then some mom and pop restaurants and barbershops and things like that. And our alder at the time said, you need someone who understands how to build infrastructure, and you shouldn't go at this alone. So there's a guy that's working on a project for the city, block or two away, the Villager Mall. His name is Jim Bauer. You should connect with him. And that's actually how we met. Do you remember that meeting?
Sure do.
And so, it was like 20 years ago. I was wide-eyed. I thought I was going to build this project. We're going to tear down this beautiful church and build all of this new structural stuff. And I remember one question you asked me. You said, okay, this is great that you want to do all of these things, but let's just say these mom and pops go belly up, because some of these startup businesses are the very toughest to start, particularly restaurants. So how many times are you willing to pass the offering envelope around, or the offering pan around your church, to make up for this if these businesses go under? And I remember right there at that meeting, my whole vision and plan for that was just shot to hell, because I never thought that it would blow back on me if people didn't didn't pay. So Jim, is that like part of like the tagline for your business? Like, we kill dreams. We shoot visionaries right in the heart.
So my day gig is really guiding social innovation into durable form. And it can look physical, like real estate, but it can often look like many other things. And oftentimes, the most important thing I can do is make sure that this mountain cannot be climbed, and that's communicated. Or if you climb it, it is likely that you will die on the ascent. And so that
No, I'm just remembering tons of conversations now that you couch it thusly.
Yeah, because these are very difficult projects and require many things to go right. And so oftentimes, what your metaphor is, the ladder's on the wrong wall, or, well, do you understand that this is a 10-year climb? Or do you understand that this is not really what I hear in your vision? Your vision is this. And we can talk even about this project where the vision evolved as you kind of calibrated. So yeah, it shouldn't be a tagline, but it might be, or a sub-tagline.
We kill vision, then visionaries. But we absolutely cannot build things unless we have those conversations and have people like you in the room, which is probably why so many visions die, because there's no one holding up that mirror or giving that kind of feedback.
So you need two sides of the coin. You need a visionary. You need someone who wants to go somewhere, who has an idea about there's something that needs to shift in the world, a new pattern, something novel needs to be created. And that energy is absolutely critical. The flip side of that is you need the capacity to ground that idea into form, into durable form, into something that actually becomes real. And sometimes that skill set is in the same person. Very rarely it is. So oftentimes the strongest visionaries are also the ones who have less capacity to ground that energy. So in some ways, we can talk about your and my partnership. It was a lot about, you needing to inhabit the world of the vision and the visionary. And then we assemble a massive team around that vision to get it done.
Now, Jim, we actually had a major shift in the focus of our meetings. I mean, when Tim first introduced us, it was around this church project. And then we don't talk about this a whole lot, but you did some life coaching with me like 20 years ago as I was trying to figure out who I was becoming. That's when we would go for those long walks. You talked me into walking out on Lake Monona, a black man at night walking on frozen ice, and I could hear, and I could hear the water. I could still hear the water running. I don't know what I was thinking. It was too dark to know that I was walking on the ice, I suppose. Right. And then one day we were at a restaurant, one that we would often frequent while we were talking about things, because I had written an op-ed piece called Justified Anger, and the community, and that's code for the white power structure, wanted me to fix race. And you kept saying, Alex, don't let them come for you. They will crucify you. You cannot fix this. This is an adaptive problem. It's not a technical problem. You can't just put the right person in office or push the right bill or get the right grant. Like, there's so many moving pieces, which was very therapeutic and timely for me, because I was under the assumption that I could, with the right funding and the right team, could wipe out racism as we knew it in Madison. And then we shifted to talk about this idea of space for Black people, where we get to celebrate culture and develop an environment, an ecosystem where Black flourishing can take place. And so this has made several twists and turns, but yet you turned with me when I started talking about this project of this center. To what degree does a project have to capture your curiosity before you think, I think I can lend my services to this. I think I could partner with this, or maybe project manager on this. Like, can you, with integrity, work on projects that you just know there's no way in hell this is going to work? Or does it have to excite you as being something really novel before you sign on?
Well, I'm looking for transformative projects. What the idea has to have transformational capacity in some way. That gets my interest. It holds my energy.
I'm going to step back and then we'll move forward. But again, when I wrote that piece, Justified Anger, we'll put a link in the podcast notes, but it was a viral piece that I wrote that was on the front page of Madison's more liberal newspaper, the Cap Times, in December 2023. And people were showing up. After I wrote that, people literally drove their cars to my church. People sent notes to my house. People came and said, I just want to meet the guy. People were in their 80s. The superintendent of schools in St. Louis that was responsible for integrating St. Louis schools came by my office. older people were saying, I know we hadn't, I've been telling people we haven't arrived yet. So I'm so glad you said that. But yet in all of those discussions, accolades, I was on, all the news shows and radios, you're the first person to say, don't let them pin this on you. There is absolutely no way that you can fix racism, because I don't know if you saw that look in my eye that just kind of felt like, maybe, it's this, and then maybe someone else will come right behind me with a cure for cancer. But of all the people I was talking with, no one told me this is impossible. Everyone's like, go get him, champ. We are so glad that you're standing up for this. You are so articulate. You're black and caring. You're safe to white people, so we think. But you just said, don't let them pin this on you, because they will love you while you're giving them hope. Then those same people will come back and crucify you because you have not alleviated them from their problems.
Yeah, especially these kind of problems that are truly adaptive, requiring human beings and human hearts to change, and patterns of being and patterns of society to change. That can't be pinned on one person.
Right.
So we desperately want to find a fix. Whereas, no, this is, I think that we may be bleeding into why I thought the center was such a transformational project. Because again, as we lived into your vision, your visionary energy, and one of the things I learned is that visionaries are not always clear about their vision.
Because they're evolving.
And it's evolving, right? It's maturing, it's evolving. It's a symbiotic relationship. That vision has to contact the ground. And when the vision contacts the ground, the vision begins to mutate and change. And that's really one of your brilliant capacities, is to mutate vision as it connects with reality. And so, yeah, the framing of let's fix racism, from my vantage point of societal innovation and what was being put upon you, it was very clear to me that was not something that you were going to be successful in. The societal leadership wanted someone to hold that problem so they didn't have to hold it for you.
Right.
And so, again, your brilliance has always been kind of holding the tension of the community with others to the question of, we can be better. These patterns of being together need to change. In some ways, that was the center project, was this audacious vision. And the way I frame it, it was, I think, you realizing that there was a piece of the societal fabric that was missing, that we as a community cannot thrive without a cultural home, without a space to come together and celebrate culture and celebrate all aspects of being. And that's really, I think, when the center vision you had started to get grounded. And then we were able to begin to agglomerate other leadership around the project. Right.
I was thinking about some of those early days, Jim. There were many iterations, and you probably have used the word iteration more than anyone I know. And I remember you saying, hey, Alex, the deal that gets done is the deal that gets done. I didn't really know what you were saying at the time, but looking back, I feel like you were saying, it might look like this today, but 3 years down the road, it might look different, and then it might then sway again. Then it might swing back closer to the original idea, but don't be so beholden to what you think it's got to be. And I think had I not been primed with that bit of wisdom, this could have destroyed me, because, we were working with a different architect. Yeah. We were trying to make it housing. Remember back in those days, this is after the run of trying to make it a soccer field, because I had funding for it, which I turned down because I realized it wasn't going to allow us to provide anything that was transformative. It was going to make the donor pretty well known, and it was not anyone from our community. It was a professional coach for a basketball team. That bit of wisdom was really important, that the deal that gets done is the one that gets done. So it went from a soccer field to a football field and a basketball court, and then it was housing, and then we were going to work with a Head Start, and then we're going to be part of an emerging alternative elementary school. How did you not lose connection with the project while I was vacillating trying to land that vision or land that plane, or are you just aware that that's the process?
Those were all, for me, ancillary to the vision, to the project that you were holding. So again, part of the role that I play is there's an ethic to my job, to the work I do, which is that I'm not the holder of the vision. My job is to relentlessly clarify and push and prod and cajole it into what can be created.
Right.
Because let's pretend we're on a mountain climb. up a very difficult mountain. And my job is to make sure that you are able to climb that mountain. But I don't climb the mountain. This is not my mountain to climb. I've climbed many mountains, and I'm here with you, but this is absolutely your mountain to climb. As we were trying to figure out partnerships and collaboration and how do we underwrite the project, and we were putting pieces together. Those were all, for me, iterations. They were still safe to fail experiments because we did not commit. We were feeling our way. We were feeling our way into what was the durable form. The co-location of the elementary school. I think the flags began to go up with me that we were going to impinge too far and too deep into your vision. And again, there was a lot of synergy of space.
Oh, exactly.
But somewhere here, were we going to force this idea to not be able to be fully formed because we went down a road we shouldn't have gone down? And so a lot of that was a discipline of us, talking and thinking and strategizing, and then ultimately, I think, realizing collectively with other partners that, okay, this did not make sense. And then once we got there, we could kind of step back into the full vision of what it is you wanted to create. I'd say, yes, you're a visionary, but you're also a deep listener. I mean, this vision didn't come from nowhere.
Right.
I mean, the part of our process we had 700 people in listening groups.
Right.
And this vision came from 30 years.
You're right.
Of your work and of tens and tens of thousands of encounters with human beings.
Right.
That evolved the idea of what the center is. So much of, I think, what a visionary's role is to put the hand on the tiller, of the sailboat. And the question is, can we put enough wind in that sail so the sailboat can go somewhere? I'm using a lot of different metaphors.
Sure.
But it's, the way I think about these kind of things.
So Jim, and I know I want to get into talking about the center, but I'm willing to follow this conversation because we're really talking about the larger concept of vision. So where does vision typically go wrong? Because I identify with visionaries who have ideas, but I realize they don't have people in their lives like you who will say, this is not what you said, or this isn't doable, or are you really sure? And so do the wheels fall off because visionaries have a good idea, but not a vision, and they're not willing to lean into the iterative process of it? Or do they think that they have a thought partner who's really trying to bring their own agenda rather than helping to maintain the integrity of the visionary's intended vision? And so in your work, where do you see the wheels coming off?
Yeah, so I'll displace visionary with social innovator.
Okay.
I think social innovators are more grounded.
Okay. Good.
And that is who you are.
Sure. I like that.
Yes, you're a visionary, but you're really a social innovator. The thing about social innovators is there's very, very, very few serial social innovators. People who innovate over and over again, and they are of the craft of social innovation. They learn to get good at the craft of social innovation. Almost all social innovators have something they want to see changed in the world, and they want to get it done. That does not mean they want to be good at social innovating. They want to climb this mountain, and they never want to climb another one. Right? The center. I mean, do you want to go? No,
don't even ask.
Build 10 of them. No, you want to create what you want to create. And so most social innovators are not good at the craft and the rhythm and the complexity of all the dimensions to what it takes to get something really complex done in the world. It goes off the wheels a lot of different ways. Oftentimes it's aspirational energy with very limited energy to continuously commit to form, to bringing it to form, to taking the grounded iterative steps to make something real. That's oftentimes not in social innovators' wheelhouse to do that, or to hold all the dimensions of it. The legal, the financial, the marketing, the fundraising, the design, the team build. The holding the team together, the dozens of dimensions. Executing the work, but staging the work and driving deep strategy, and then driving that strategy with tactics and timing. And when we release work, it's this relentless flow of decisions about how and when to navigate around this point in time, this block, this part of the ascent. And most social innovators don't know how to do that.
And don't care to.
Don't care to either. Yeah.
But Jim, no, that's not necessarily your wheelhouse either, but you took that role on in this project, like some of those deep strategy things. Because I remember us having a conversation where you said, who's going to be able to grab this? Will it be Harry? And it's like, no, Harry's got to really make sure that Harry is the new president of Nehemiah, the organization I created in the early 90s and just retired from last year. And so at some point you realize Alex is a social innovator. He's not wired to do this even a day, much less for the next 6-7 years to get this project done. But yet you stepped into that space, and when you told me you would do that to help me by holding it, I had no idea what you were saying. I didn't really know what it meant. I was just glad that it was something I didn't have to do. But like, what was ticking inside you saying, well, this is not necessarily my sweet spot either, but I'm going to step in and do this?
Yeah, I think the biggest struggle for me was the relentless set of tangible next steps. Mm-hmm. Just the thousands and thousands and thousands.
Literally.
Yeah. I have wiring for some of that, and I'm not naturally wired to do 8-10 hours of that a day. Now, so the way you solve that is you bring in an immensely capable team.
Sure.
That holds almost all of that. That's what we did. I mean, we had an extraordinary team.
Amazing. Many of whom have been on this podcast.
Yeah, that were capable of holding all dimensions of the project. And then part of the design for me was to make sure that people were holding that role in the right way. Like you've had Amanda on the program, right?
Right.
Yeah. And so Amanda was a fundraising consultant when we brought her on.
Right.
The project didn't need a fundraising consultant. The project needed a director of the capital campaign. Mm-hmm. And so for me, the switch with her was the conversation around her being the director. She is the director of this. She's not a consultant.
Right.
She is inside the tent.
Exactly.
And she is holding that responsibility. And so just go down the team, all dimensions of the team did just brilliant job of holding an immense amount of responsibility inside the tent. And so I think the thing that made this successful is I don't really know of anyone that wasn't inside the tent.
Right.
Carrying whatever weight they could to make this happen.
And Jim, those people were outsiders too. I mean, even because either culturally, racially, because they were not from the neighborhood or not a part of the project long term. But it did require that you and I had that we had a strong enough trust among each other, ourselves, and respect, so that when you said these people need to come into the tent, I believed you. And you know that there were times I was, resistant. I said this when Amanda was on the show. Yeah. When I found out that I was not paying her to raise the money, then I thought, well, then why the hell am I hiring a director of fundraising if I got what is she my coach? Like go get him, Tiger. Like I didn't understand that. So not only to bring her on board, because that's not cheap,
right,
but then to bring her into the tent. Yeah. Those are two major steps. And I right there, if people are listening and they're trying to figure out how do you go from concept to a completely paid off $32 million, 37,500 square foot facility, it requires a whole lot of trust. I mean, like these things you're talking about, like getting the people under the tent and trust, that made fundraising easy. That fundraising was not the hardest part of this. Letting go of part of the vision, communicating that I didn't know the full vision, that it was evolving, trusting this baby, my soul, with people while still trusting that they weren't trying to undermine me or take something away or weren't trying to push an agenda. Working through all of that, that was the tough work. Asking people for $32 million, I really asked them for 40, we got 32. Yeah. That was easy compared to some of the other stuff. Do you think that's a fair assumption?
Yeah, I think that was your felt reality, for sure. Yeah, I mean, again, it's this is a high trust game.
Yes.
And if you can't build trust and have integrity of relationship, the carrying costs are too much. And again, for me, is kind of your partner in that. Every step of the way, I was looking to you to make that decision. I mean, because it had to meet your threshold.
Right.
And again, we had some hiccups, we had some missteps.
Sure.
We went after parts of teams that went sideways.
Right.
Trying to bring on parts of teams that just they were brought on and they weren't the right piece. And again, you were always a clean bellwether to that.
Yes.
Of
I appreciate that.
Well, again, when these human beings held the role with integrity in ways that understood who needs to hold the vision and how their role served that vision.
Sure.
There was a discipline about, I was constantly looking for that.
Yes, you were.
And, to the credit of everyone on part of this project, I mean, it was just an incredible team.
Sure. Jim, in light of everything that was happening during these meetings, COVID had just kicked in, George Floyd had just been murdered. We were watching just craziness after craziness take place in our world, from the January 6th event to the shooting of Breonna Taylor. Our meetings and gatherings should have really been much more heated than they really were. There's something very powerful about the vision that compelled us to be on the same side. And it was isolation that we were fighting. It was structural racism that we were fighting. It was a lack of a place for the Black community to flourish. That's what we fought against. And I'm not saying that we never had any missteps, but we might have had as many cultural missteps as we did gender missteps or social status missteps. But for the amount of time we were together and the amount of work that we got done, and for the completion of this task, the flare-ups and the huge issues that you think that would happen between Black folks and white people working together for years, those distractions were really minor compared to all of the good that's come out of the project. Because somewhere in that process, we did become a team, and we believe that it was us against the issues and not us against each other. Because I'm being asked a lot about how you do this work. Like, can we get your Rolodex, or can you introduce us to some people? That was really the easy part. But how we work together as a team is what made this exude a great sense of excellence. So for people that are trying to figure out, who are listening and trying to figure out how do you do big things, it's vision that you have to manage. But the way you coalesce the team that helps you go after that beautiful vision, and trusting in the power of that team, and giving it your trust, and then being willing to trust it, that was certainly worthwhile, but that was costly, because that's usually where the wheels came off for me. It was usually in those spaces where then someone would bring something completely out of left field and say, all right, and so now we're going to slide in brown people and people of color, and we're going to make it broader because we feel uncomfortable making it just about Blackness. That never ripped us apart, because I feel like the team was convinced this is Alex's vision, this is what's needed. And I never felt that was questioned in those circles. And that's really major, because my Black friends around the country are trying to figure out, how did white people follow Black leadership, and how did white money follow Black leadership while you were authentic to what you were saying?
Yeah, that's deep water. I mean, I think one of the things that I understand about my work is that vision is not a committee assignment.
That's a sermon. That'll preach, Jim.
Yeah, I mean, direction, someone has to want to go somewhere. And the more someones you get into a room, the more dispersed that energy becomes. It becomes multiple directions, multiple visions.
Sure.
For me, this project had one visionary. There are others who envisioned.
Of course.
Others who brought lots of sub-visions. I mean, you just think about what JLA did.
Right.
And Rafiq and the team.
Right.
I mean, there are so many dimensions of vision in the work that they did that you didn't bring, I didn't bring. They breathed their spirit, their soul.
Zebra Dog, Heebing, those folks,
Findorf, and, you name it. But there was still one visionary in charge of the deep vision. And so a little bit of the dance you and I had was, I was always trying to modulate when we needed you to speak into something and when we didn't. The missteps you and I made every once in a while was I didn't bring you in on something that you later felt I should have brought you in on. And so again, my job was to preserve your energy.
Right.
We weren't burning, your scarce amount of time on just these thousands of details, but then also you touch pointing when you needed to be at the tiller and put your stamp or your direction on what we were up to.
Sure.
The other thing is the team was aligned to the vision. So these weren't just a bunch of people who were service providers or were outside bolted on companies and organizations. These were sets of human beings who said, yes, I believe in this, that this is a missing piece of our societal fabric, and I'm going to invest my heart and soul, my energy, my time into this project.
And they took time to understand what this was.
Yep.
It wasn't just this is the place to be.
Right.
They listened deeply because it was different than
Yeah.
what they had participated in before, which I appreciate.
And there's a credibility game to this kind of project too, which is you have to get to a point of credibility, which is, okay, right? This is a incredible idea, an audacious idea, ridiculous idea.
Sure.
Too big of an idea for a city like Madison.
Definitely audacious.
Yeah, I don't think it's credible. You remember those days?
Yes.
Where the back chatter was, there's no way they're going to get this done.
Right.
Who are they talking to think that this could be done?
Right.
Remember the days where is $12 million is the absolute limit.
Dude, I sure do. And typically those things take the wind out of my sail, but knowing that people thought that actually fired me up. That's not normally my MO. I would like to think that it was my natural MO. But having people I respect who understand fundraising and how development works inside a community like Madison, people who know how that works, and to have them doubt or question what we're doing, that was a sucker punch. But it made me dig in because the team would reinforce my confidence and faith if I happened to come in and was feeling low on morale, and I would pump them up when another group would have a salient move or they'd land a great pot of money. I would say there's enough money out here for all of us. We don't have to worry that ours is gone because they've gotten it. We can be both and.
Yeah.
There's so much uncertainty in the world right now, but I love that sitting down right here in front of this mic and letting the hard truths rumble out of my heart and off my chest is as certain as it ever was. When I reflect back on all the seasons that we dropped here at Black Like Me podcast, each of them has had a special purpose, a one-of-a-kind lineup of guests, and its own unique feel. I also think about the thread that binds them all together. What we do here at Black Like Me is unique. I don't have another space that feels just like this, where I can really speak from my unique perspective. And the guests who have on the show remark that these interviews they do here are unlike any others that they've done in other places. Sure, nobody else does Black Icebreakers, but that's only part of it. We have created a truly unique space here where honest conversations about the thoughts, the ideas, the policies that affect Black people and that Black people care deeply about. And you know what? It isn't easy. And I don't do this all alone. I have an incredible team that has steadily grown over the years, and each person that joins adds another asset to what we can do here. And all of you that support us on Patreon, my people, my people, my people. We simply would not be able to do what we do or get what we have gotten without you. So as we look to even bigger and better things in the coming season, please help support the show right now by clicking the link to Patreon in the show notes and join the community of people supporting this unique and provocative space. In the world that we're living in, where there's so much attack on our perspectives, our history, our bodies, and our lives and contributions, aren't you glad you have a place where you can still hear powerful, exhilarating, intellectual Black thought like you do? I enjoy it. And so if you do too, share the good news, tell friends, click that Patreon link now. Thank you so much for your support of Black Like Me podcast with Dr. Alex G. You come into a project like this and others wanting to help leaders and help social innovators or serial social innovators, but it's got to be fun to learn some things about yourself too. So I'm curious, are there things that you learned about yourself on the project? Is there a moment where you realize you're growing, maybe not just professionally, but maybe even personally, as being a part of something that's going to shape and touch our community, but is moving in a direction that perhaps you wouldn't have designed it to move in? but yet you stayed for the ride. So I'm curious, do you remember any things you learned about yourself or strengths that you had that maybe you were unaware of, or lessons to learn in key points of this?
Well, that's a deep question. I learned that I had more stamina than I thought I had. For those who don't know, I think you and I have been at this for 8 years?
Yeah, at least.
That's the nature of these projects. Oh, I think for me, there's so many gifts to this kind of work. The gift of the cross-cultural workspace was just an incredible experience. Early on, you and I talked about design of how do we get at these issues of race, and I think you had this brilliant insight, which is the problem is in this black-white conversation dialogue, people aren't up to something together. And if you're up to something together, then all of these difficult conversations to navigate this cross-cultural differences matters. But if you're not up to something, it's just draining.
Right.
So much of the beauty of this work and being sort of bathed in the black cultural space, because again, this was a dominant black cultural project.
Right.
Was that we were up to something together. And so it matters.
Sure.
So and also it smooths over. Again, I remember, the people in my shoes, oftentimes what our rule of thumb is do no harm. First, do no harm. And so I can't remember what the issue was or what happened. You and I went sideways on something. And I remember thinking, just putting my hands back and saying, okay, every bone of my body is trying to not do harm.
Right.
If I'm doing harm, I'm going to step away. I'll just step away. I mean, if I'm doing harm, then exit stage left is the option of choice. And somewhere here, again, because of our relationship, I realized that wasn't the right instinct. That wasn't the right call. The right call was to lean into it.
Lean in, exactly.
The call, and that, by the way, is, I think, what white culture doesn't understand about black culture and conflict. Black culture is, again, there's no such thing as monolith, but black culture is alive and thrives with conflict.
Yeah, it's often called being in your face, but we're trying to actually resolve something.
Right, and engaging, and it's okay to, had a great conversation with Harry and, about, family gatherings. Again, the space is alive and vibrant and thus energetic.
Right.
Oftentimes with conflict. And we have the conflict, we have it out, and then we come back together again.
Right.
That was a beautiful lesson I learned from being in the space.
Because if you had thrown up your hands and said, I don't want to do any harm, I didn't mean to mess anything up, then I'd get a resignation the next day. Hey, I didn't mean to hurt anything. Yeah. That would have been worse than any of the stuff that we were finding ourselves in conflict over, because then it would have been like, oh, you just abandoned the whole thing at the first time we had some conflict. When I'm thinking, I thought we were getting to a good place because we were actually talking about things.
And if we weren't up to something that mattered together, stepping away might have been the right choice, right?
Right. No, that's a good point.
Yeah.
As a social innovator, you've got to figure out, when does a vision become real? We talked about this a little bit earlier. Do you remember any particular critical junctures where you said, okay, this is a real project? And I know there are probably lots of moments, but I'm just curious if there are any key moments, because as the visionary or the innovator, I probably will talk about when we hit the halfway mark financially, or when, something that's more concrete, like a financial milestone. But I'm curious if there are any things that you look back on and say, when that happened, or at that moment, that's when I knew we had gotten over the hump. This was gonna, the likelihood of this happening is greater than it not happening.
Now I look at it, I come at that a different way, which is most innovation, social innovation, is iterative and safe to fail experiments. You're moving ground, lots of it, lots of experiments, lots of trying on, lots of next steps. Pace, energy, movement is what matters. Iteration is what matters.
Right.
We were in safe to fail space for quite a while. So in my mind, it was, okay, if this thing tanks, it's going to be bad, but it's not going to be catastrophic to reputation, to the idea, to you. What happened in this project, in hiking, there's a concept called point of no return, which is you got to go forward. You can no longer go backward.
Right.
And so somewhere in the journey, we got in too deep. And I remember sitting on it because I knew we were almost at the point of no return. I feel it in my bones. The visionary normally doesn't, but I know kind of when it feels like our only path out is up or forward. And then it's not like it's done. It's like, oh crap, we now have got to go.
Right.
And that means assembling everyone to, there is no questioning at that point. There is no doubt. The doubt is not a useful emotion. You can have whatever feelings you want, but at some point you live your way into the reality. And again, people like Rick Phelps are just absolutely brilliant at knowing they will accomplish this, getting this done. And so
Rick's a former county executive for Dane County, and he was a member of our campaign team.
And part of our strategy team.
Yes.
But, a man of immense resolve.
Oh,
When he has a project in his grasp, he does not fail. So you bolt on all these people with the energy of, we have accomplished great things in our lives in all different dimensions. We are now going to bolt on that commitment and that belief and our reputation onto this project. And that's when the project started to not come home, but the project started to become truly real.
No, that's real good, Jim. In this project, I know that for many of us who are Black, who are at the table, on the leadership side of the table, often come to projects where we say, we know that we're representing our community. So we don't want to be half-hearted. We don't want to be lacking. We don't want to be unprepared, because we knew that a lot of people were watching us. And if this thing tanked, it wouldn't just impact how people looked at us, but at people who look like us. I'm curious, at any point, do you think that the white members of that team thought, well, if this tanks or if we fail the Black community on this somehow, it'll look bad on other white people, on our culture? I just want to see if you all, at least in this project, carried some of that fear that if this goes bad, this is going to make my community look bad. Do you think that you or white members felt the pressure that you didn't want to let the white community down or put it in a negative light?
I think this, one of the amazing things about this project is that this was embraced by the broader community. And there were a lot of white folks at the table.
There were.
Wanting to get this done. And reputational risk was all over the place. So many white leaders in this project, who basically threw their full reputational energy into
They did.
a piece of the puzzle because they believed in the project and they were going to go to the absolute mat for it. So I think it would have been I think there was a sense in the segment of the leadership of the broader community, the white community, that this project needs to get done. And I think it was a sense that this is a project birthed from the Black community.
Right.
This is a project that the Black community is asking for and is engaging the broader community in a real strong vision, and we've got to get behind it. If we don't, then what? And I think that was a real tension that actually allowed us to get it done.
I hope I've grown in the process, and to the extent that just being under constant pressure can make that happen. I felt the constant pressure. And if nothing else, I felt that this project caused me to move from identifying myself as a visionary to a social innovator, because I understand why visionary can just say what they see, but an innovator puts some effort and some structure into it. And so there are places I can really tell that I grew professionally, personally, spiritually, relationally in this process. Do you feel that there are ways you grew professionally and personally in the process, or transformed in any way?
Yeah, I mean, you don't work on a project this deeply without growing in so many ways. most of the ways for me are really tacit now. I mean, are really subtle. You know, I don't think I'll do another physical form project like this ever again.
I don't either.
Yeah.
I'll coach people. You can reach out to me to help consult with you.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes social innovations need physical form, and you know, I have a competence or capacity in physical form, but it's not my love. It's not my true calling. Weaving together this number of dimensions of a project of this complexity, all the rivers and streams and flows of energy, is probably something I grew in. You know, to be able to hold all of that, you know, simultaneously. Timing and pacing, the action and activity. I think it was also a real experience in deeply trusting the teams that were holding their spaces. By the 3/4 mark or the last 15-20% of the project, you know, my role, my need to be in the role I was in, you know, was fading. And that was by design.
Sure.
That was by design as the finish line became clear.
And I don't think I saw that coming. I saw when it happened, but I don't think I had figured that into the evolution of the project, that at some point as we got closer to finishing, that your role would diminish, because my role was getting even busier because we were getting ready for
because you were transitioning to
staff
operation.
and
right,
exactly.
Right.
And so I would look up and realize, wow, man, I haven't talked to Jim this week or last week, or we're not at this same Zoom call, or he's not at these meetings. But I was so busy with other things that it actually took me a while to realize that shift had really taken. But as someone who helps with social innovation, you understand that that's part of the evolution. I assume. I didn't get that memo, so I didn't know that part was happening. Jim, you know, these days people talk a lot about being an ally, and I think they've probably focused more on talking about it than doing something together. So I'm curious, for people, you know, I'm not trying to make you the ally expert, but I will ask you an ally expert question. What advice would you give someone who wants to support a community's vision, but they don't want to try to control it or manipulate it? Do you have any advice for people from the dominant culture who want to be allies and want to step in spaces to be helpful with community vision? Are there pointers you would give them to help them to not try to control it?
Well, that's a good question. It's a very hard thing to navigate, because you have to find something that you have a gift in to give, and you want to give that gift the way you want to give it. And so you know, does that marry up with someone in the Black community who has a place they want to go and need your help? And does that marry up? And oftentimes it doesn't, and you know, the white ally wants to do what they want to do the way they want to do it, and that's when the conflict arises. Part of the work is to define the work concretely enough so that the job description is clear. You know, like we need this, you know, and it's explicit enough to know that this is what we need, and can you fulfill this role? Oftentimes that role is not clear, and or white allies come in and define roles, and then it becomes mucky very, very quickly. I don't know if that makes sense in your experience.
It does. You know, when we look down the road 20 years or so, and you know, children, families, artists, entrepreneurs, elders are benefiting from the center, what's one or two things that you hope they'll never forget about why this place was built?
You're going to be living into that experiment of what this space is going to become to the community. It's a little bit like maybe 20 years ago, I helped start, or 15 years ago, I helped start the work to bring a public market to Madison. And one of the consultants who had built many public markets across the United States, he said one of the most important things for you to know is the public market that you create and open your doors on is not going to be the public market that's going to be here 3 years from now. Because once you open the doors, then it becomes real, and then it becomes something that's different than what you thought it would be.
We're experiencing that now.
What I'm just super excited about is what this space becomes 5, 7, 10 years from now. And it's not going to be anything like what you believe it to be now. And that's going to be really cool.
Yes.
And so, the physical form is needed. You have to have space. Again, one of the great gifts of this space is that it is designed by the Black community.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's space that you and the community, your community, will breathe life into in ways that make sense, and in ways that will evolve and grow and mutate and over many, many years.
And why is that important to you personally?
Because that means the transformative impact is alive. The transformation is about the thousands and thousands and tens of thousands and ultimately hundreds of thousands of touch points, of experiences, of relationships, of connections, of conversations, of gathering that would not happen without this having been created. And so what's the societal impact of that? You can't calculate it. You can't calculate it. A child has an experience in an art class for 2 months on a Saturday, and their world is dramatically changed because of that one experience. Or the gathering of a diaspora group, and that's emerging, and they find a home here where they meet once a month that they would not have been able to do otherwise. Or the hundreds and hundreds of dimensions of what this space can become that the community will breathe into. And that's the legacy of a space like this.
Yes.
You can't know.
I love that. Do you think we oversold the concept that the broader and entire community will benefit from this space and this project?
That's going to be something you'll breathe into as well, and find a conversation. Again, I think part of your vision was that this space is also about having a conversation, and a space to have the conversation, in many respects, in our space. I mean, I remember, I think one of the things you said that was so powerful is that, we don't have a living room where we can invite the broader community into to have a conversation. Instead, we have to go to their living room, to their space.
To tell them about themselves.
Yeah. And so the shift in space is a shift in control, and a shift in definition, and a shift in a rebalance, between a minority community and a majority community. And so without, a minority community, I mean, demographically, numbers-wise, not having space to own, control, to breathe into, to program, you're kind of asking instead of setting the table, instead of inviting. When you're able to set the table, when you're able to invite, when you're able to design the gathering, then that is a radically different conversation. And again, I think that's a deep part of what I got from your vision of why this space is so important to the broader community.
Sure.
And of course, it's also about inhabiting our youth with a sense of culture, with a sense of excellence, and all of that that's so important to all kids, but certainly kids within the Black community, to feel a grounding of their community, of their culture that, again, in an overwhelmingly dominant culture, it's just so important.
Right.
Again, that's why this project wouldn't make sense in Atlanta or, in a dominant, Black southern city, or even in New York necessarily, where the vibrancy of so many cultures are banging into each other. This project is kind of here in Madison for a reason.
Surprisingly, I'm starting to get calls from Oakland, Sacramento, Atlanta, where they are saying, you would think we'd have this in Atlanta, in these places, but there's a deep desire. It's like I have a group flying in from Atlanta in a few weeks because they don't necessarily have something that looks like this, that it may focus on Blackness, but it might not focus on excellence, or excellence, but not necessarily from a Black-centric perspective. So what I'm finding is that this fits Madison very well, but I think we're also going to find that the unique way in which we went by this, particularly being unapologetically Black in our design, is something that's going to awaken a lot of communities that we think have a preponderance of Black expression, but don't necessarily have it centered under one roof like we do. I think we're going to find that this is more unique nationwide.
Yeah.
And I think the benefit for the local community is that when people feel at home, they stay. I'm hearing Black people say either, I don't feel like I'm in Madison. One gentleman said, for the first time in a long time, I feel proud to be a Madisonian. Once people feel a sense of home and belonging and flourishing, where we shop, how we shop, where we go to school, how long we stay here, those things will have a huge impact on Madison's desire to be a community where we're more welcoming to people from all backgrounds. And when we can be our best in this place, we can then give our best. But I think the way the city and the state stands to benefit is when we make the decision to stay here because we believe that we can flourish here. Because right now that's not the belief, but as people begin to believe it, that's going to be a game changer.
Absolutely.
But Jim, thank you. I always enjoy our conversations, but I wanted to capture this because as people are listening and they're trying to figure out what to do in their communities, they're having talks about what it means to represent Black excellence in their communities, but they haven't talked about how do you build these cross-cultural relationships that help you to touch all segments of society so that you move together as a unit to get these things done. So this subset of interviews within this season of talking about the powerful unveiling of the Center for Black Excellence in Culture is really, really important because they're just strengths and experiences that we all bring to the table. You asked our architects to do this project pro bono. I didn't even think that was a thing. And I sat in my office and watched them agree to do this until money came through.
The initial stage, yes.
Didn't it? Right, we paid them. Like, we don't want everyone chasing down Jolie and Rafiq saying, hey, you did it for them. No, we paid them. But they agreed to help us get the ball rolling, which was really, really important. And other lawyers and people. So I learned a lot in this process. So Jim, thank you for swinging by.
You bet.
So we can do this.
Black like me. Black like me.
Hey folks, I want to thank you for listening in to another exciting episode of Black Like Me with Dr. Alex G. And to talk with friends and colleagues who worked with me behind the scenes to make this vision a possibility is so important to me because I never fear that it will crumble because it was never built on my shoulders alone. A lot of people stood with me, and that good energy and that good faith went into this project. And so I have only good thoughts and hopes and expectations. Listen, you know someone that's trying to understand partnership and allyship and cross-cultural work. Share this episode with them because I'm sure it will lift them up. You could also repurpose it by posting it on your social media with some comments. And although I don't always talk about this, we still need people to write reviews about the podcast itself. So wherever it is you go to download your podcast, you'll find places to also write about this particular podcast and what it means to you. And so why don't you just take a moment and hook a brother up? Why don't you do that? In addition to sharing and reposting, there's a link in the notes that just tell you how you can become a financial partner through Patreon. And for as little as $2 a month, you can make sure that we have the team, the staff, the equipment so that we can continue to bring you this amazing podcast as often as we do. I want to thank the folks who make this a great possibility. Ariana and Eli, who are both in the studios as my engineer, but they're also producers to make sure that this is impeccable once it's uploaded and you're able to listen to it. And listen, if there are things that you'd love to hear me talk about or a subject that we've talked about and you'd like for me to revisit it, write us, reach out to us. We have a link inside the notes also where you can let us know what are the kinds of things that you'd find helpful and that you'd love to hear me talk about. All right, until the next time we're together, I want to thank you for being the best part of Black Like Me podcast, and that's my listening audience. I appreciate you more than you realize. So have a great day, and thank you again for being a part of Black Like Me with Dr. Alex G.
Black like me. Black like me.